A lot of Americans are fed up with the punditry of the discussions around what's happening in Washington, D.C., the White House takeover, as it's been called, the National Guard being sent in. They've now been seen patrolling metro stations. But, where's the conversation with somebody who was on the police force for a long time, a career officer, somebody who's worked the streets, somebody who's seen these neighborhoods, not just over the past couple of years, which have been referenced a lot, but over the past decades, who can give us some context? Where's somebody who's seen these teenagers who've become gang members and drug dealers? And where is someone who can talk about the services currently being provided to citizens in some of these high violent crime neighborhoods, these marginalized neighborhoods where crime most affects them? I wanted to have this conversation for a number of reasons. It's newsworthy, but beyond the buzzy headlines, there are the constitutionality questions, there are the legality questions, the jurisdiction questions, but there's also the morality and what is best for the future of the citizens in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Here's my conversation with retired police sergeant and undercover narcotics detective turned pastor, Dale Sutherland.
I wanted to work with urban youth in Washington, D.C. That was really my goal. I was going to Washington Bible College. I wanted to work with kids in the city and, faced real severe challenges. And I thought, I just don't know anything about the street. I'm a suburban kid and everything. I don't know anything. So I asked, what if I joined the police department for like 2 years? I just learn. I'm just going to learn what it's like in the city, maybe be able to relate, understand a little bit more. And so that was my goal. I joined the police department. And I stayed 29 years instead of 2 years. And I ended up being a pastor for the last 12 years. So I was both. I was both pastor and police officer at the same time. Working undercover most of that time, working narcotics most of the time.
Well, so I want to get your take because I think a lot of people have tried to report on this story, and God bless everybody doing that. But if you look at the stats, if you just go online and Google, almost every news article, every news outlet is saying crime has gone down in Washington, D.C. from 2023. Like the past 2 years, we've seen a significant drop in violent crimes, aggravated assault, murder. First, your thoughts. Is Washington, D.C. crime bad?
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. It has been for long before I came. I started in the 1980s when the crack epidemic was going on. It was like really hard for people to understand, like when they talk about the mandatory minimums or they rehearse past history, why these things happen and why these laws. Well, you had to understand the circumstances. The country was almost in a civil war. We had people getting killed. We had 500. We're a city of 600,000. How can that many people be murdered? And that was how many we called murders. Believe me, there were a lot because they were trying to keep the stats low. There were so many bodies that there was a lot of times that I can remember when I was in homicide, we had a body that honestly was just a torso. They had taken off the head, taken off the legs, and they wouldn't rule it a murder because they said, look, it's just a torso. I don't know. So in other words, there's many cases like that where I think the numbers would be a lot higher. The statistics are a little dangerous, as you can imagine. The UCR report is where they're getting that from. It's the Uniform Crime Report, and there's lots of, hieroglyphics they do in order to get their numbers right. The bottom line is everybody knows. If you live in the city, I just think it's always unfair for those like me who don't live in the city, for me to say what they ought to do in Condon Terrace or in Berry Farms. They have to live it every day. They have to talk to them. I mean, they have to be careful going to their car. They have to watch robberies. I mean, during my career, we had the National Guard out. We had them deployed several times during my career. We had the federales come in, a bunch of times. We worked together all the time, but then they deployed ATF at one time all over the city. They deployed DEA over the, this was a common tactic to try to deal with the terrible crime we had in the city.
I would like to know what it was like for you or for the force back then when the National Guard was deployed.
It was great. They let us use their helicopters to, we would be able to surveil places and during search warrants and all, they could go take a look at things before we did. We'd have a guy up in the helicopter every night, really. So National Guard would do the helicopters. We could call them where we wanted them. And they did these things, these big, they had a murder in the street, that same street the night before. They'd bring in their trucks and big searchlights and sit out there all night instead of a policeman doing it.
I wanted to ask you, because you served in the Vice unit for DC Police. So I wanted to hear again, you said it started off as one name.
Okay, so so when I started in the police department, 1987 in DC Police, and the what you would call is like they called it the morals division, and that division handled gambling crimes, uh, prostitution and perversion, P&P unit, the prostitution and perversion unit, the then narcotics guys, and alcohol too. So there was bootleggers. You know the bar closed at 2 a.m. These guys would sell out of their house at past 2 a.m. And I'm not kidding. When I came on, there were still those units. I would say that in the country, what worries me now, just as a citizen, is not the support of the police. You gotta watch. You can't have them do two things. You know, you can't have a problem that is really bad, and we all want cleared up. Um, and then we tell the police you can't clear it up. But you're bad if you don't clear it up. I would say you got to support the police and empower the police. That would be more important really than the National Guard probably, as far as effectiveness in the city, is if somehow they could empower the police, really prosecute criminals, really let them arrest bad guys and back them and support them in the courts and protect them from all these frivolous, accusations and everything.
Well, because the court system is a big problem, right? Because the police
Terrible.
know they can't they can't even try. Like, this guy might have done something horrendous, but he's going to get off the hook, or he's going to get off on probation.
Yeah. You see on TV where the police are working and they're arguing with the prosecutors and they're trying to get a case solved and then it gets thrown out. Oh, that's all real. That's all real. I wish I could tell you it doesn't happen. It's exactly what happens. And sometimes the prosecutor's office is the worst part of the whole system because they would say, in their defense, they would say, look, we can't take a half-baked case and then we lose at trial. Because if we take a chance to lose them, we'd rather cut it here. So you have all these guys who don't get prosecuted. In the city now, I hope there's a change and there's more of a push towards prosecution. And we're seeing that even across other cities, right? I mean, I'm watching the news, not anything particular, but I would say that's super needed, man. I mean, it's really hard to go to jail in this country. I know that isn't a popular thing to say, but if you study it and you see how long it took that guy to get from here to here, it's hard to get him to prison. It's hard. You got to do a lot, unless unless it's a particularly heinous crime and you're caught. These ideas that a guy mistakenly ends up in handcuffs, it could happen for sure, but generally speaking, that's unusual. Most of the guys that are incarcerated have seen the police multiple times before that.
Have you had any thoughts about the Attorney General Pam Bondi taking over DC police?
I mean, look, I don't even know what that means for sure. So I don't. I mean, is she going to take out the chief of police? I don't know what the attorney general or the head of the DA would do to. I don't understand exactly, but let's assume that it means more prosecution, more support for the police, additional police officers get hired. That's something presidents have done. Back to Nixon, is they've increased the hiring of police. The Congress did that too back in 89, 90. They had the police chief, give him a bunch of money and said, go hire a bunch of guys. There's an article today in the Post saying that was a bad thing, but they don't really know what they're talking about. So they were wrong. I worked with those guys. So they were saying all the guys got rushed to get hired, 89 to 91, were bad. And the truth is that they were some of the bravest and greatest policemen we ever had. So U.S. Attorney, FBI, ATF. Do you know how many police agencies we have in the city? I think somebody told me one time, 28 just in Washington, D.C. We've got Library of Congress Police, Smithsonian Police, U.S. Capitol Police, FBI Police, CIA Police. All those have their own police departments. No kidding. And nobody can, you know what I mean? It's always been a challenge there. But to me, it's just an issue of deployment. Deploy them in the right places. Seems like it would be helpful. If I had bad guys outside my front door, and you say nobody or National Guard, I'm all for the National Guard. Whoever can sit out there is fine with me. What the president's authority is, and I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I don't know anything about that, but I just don't know why I have to speak for the citizen, for the guy and the little old ladies that are living down in tough places, and say to them, no, keep the good guys away from them. Wait, why? I don't understand. Remember when they would have them after 9/11, or when they'd have them, you'd see them for a long time. We had them in all the train stations, all the airports, and everything. I mean, didn't you feel a little bit more comfortable? I just don't know why I've got to deprive. In other words, in my attempt to battle politically,
Is so small. I looked it up. It's around 700,000 people
yeah,
in a very tiny area. Compared
67 square miles.
67 square miles, 700,000 people, and that's a rough estimate compared to a place like New York City.
Yeah,
Um,
massive. I mean,
Chicago. I mean,
yeah.
it's like a quarter the size of Chicago's population.
LA is 300 square miles. Just gives you some idea of the dense, the size of the place. Um, and Washington, listen, Washington's always been violent. If you look in the federal prisons, there's a problem they have. They call them the D.C. boys. I'm telling you, the federal says, how can that be with Detroit and L.A. and all those things? Wherever the D.C. crowd, the D.C. criminals go, they cause trouble. So they got to break them up in the federal prison system. That's been going on for 30 years. Everybody knows they're just violent and tough, and it's a unique group. And so you cannot ever, you can't minimize the danger that people live in. And the other thing that's new is not new, but worse is the juvenile crime. I mean, look, we work with this charity, right? We started this thing called Boost Others, and one of our crises, we work at Children's Hospital. We just helped a mother of a 3-year-old who got shot and killed. Do you want to tell her that this is not a bad crime problem? I mean, the little girl's lost her life. She was just driving in a car. So this is real. I mean, real people are dying. Real people are injured. Real people are hurt all the time. And we created this to do that, to help. But I mean, golly, if there's anything the government could do to help, they ought to.
So let's talk about Boost Others, this charitable organization. You're one of the founders.
Yeah, well, when I retired, what happened was I got frustrated because we would, when I was police, we'd watch in the neighborhoods, the marginal neighborhoods. We'd call them the do-gooders. They'd come down and they'd like clean up a park that was not the place to clean up. They were helping nobody. It was a bad, and the guys would always like. So I'd get tired of doing stuff like that, like or handing out coats so people already have them, things like that. So I called social worker friend. I said, look, how about this? You call me when you have somebody who really needs it. Somebody you vetted, somebody needs it, and then we'll solve it for you. Kind of like the police. You call, you got the person calling in as the social worker, and she's kind of the dispatcher, sends us the need. We then go respond. We don't have to question or anything.
We wanted to see if we could help you through this tough time, kind of pull you out of this so you can get back on your feet. $5,000, would that help?
Our goal is to answer within 2 to 4 hours of every call we get. So we used to do 200 needs a year. This year we're on pace to do 1,300 or so this year, 1,300 families. So, the calls we get a call from Child Protective Services where a little girl just got molested, raped, and what do they have? They're doing all the good things government does. Praise the Lord for that. That's really good. But there's some things they can't do, like get her a new bed and a new bed set and to be there with the mom. And so we have a pastor respond right there. They're there that night, called on the scene, and helped that way. That's the kind of stuff we wanted to do that nobody else is doing. Let's fill in the gaps where there are gaps.
Well, I think this is a really important conversation because you hear people are saying, listen, DC's getting better. They're asking for more resources. They're asking, instead of the National Guard, to have organizations like your own go in and help these families, these marginalized communities. What would you say to them? Are you able to work with the government? And is the government aware of what you're doing?
Listen, well, in my case, the Boost Others, yes, we partner with DC Police. We work a lot with DC Police. And the real answer to me, you want to go to the base of what will change this city will be Jesus and the mercy of God. And for people to stop rebelling against God and to repent of their sins and give them their lives. That's really what needs to happen. All the juveniles that are out there causing trouble, it's faithful pastors and faithful sisters that are going to go out there and share Christ and see their lives change. That's the dream. But until that happens on this side of, we need the police. So I can't do that as a pastor I mean, I can bring you help and all, but I can't protect all the houses in in Kenilworth or all these different housing projects.
What other kinds of work do you do to help people in these neighborhoods?
So we're working with a lot of very sick children because a lot of folks that don't have resources have other needs. When they go, we just had 3 different deaths of children in the last 2 or 3 weeks, which is very unusual. You know, one of them was a family that they lost, both the husband and wife lost their job during the sickness, the illness, because they couldn't keep them on. In this case, we provided some money to help with funeral costs and all the things go with that. In the same way, we want to receive calls that are vetted and for sure. And I guarantee you that the funding you spend will go directly to the need. So a lot of it is around violence and assault and domestic assault. We deal a lot with that. Emergencies where people got to move out of their houses overnight. And there's just nobody who can do that, or nobody who can get the hotel always, and so on. So there's not always somebody, and we're able to respond a little quicker and maybe fill in areas where the social workers can't get others to. We only deal with social workers. We don't take any calls from, as wonderful as people are. My whole idea was I wanted to protect. If you give me $200, I want to make sure the $200 is going right where it should, for sure. So it's much better if somebody vetted, police officer, medic, social worker, teacher, they all have access to us, and they can call and let us know, hey, this is the need that I just left. One of our workers go deliver to a family and knocked on the door to make the delivery, and the poor woman, you know, was just black and blue, her whole face black and blue, and we were able to provide some emergency need. She's going to be okay. She's there's lots of resources that help her holistically, like I think for the long term. But for right then, they needed us to go there and solve things like get them moved out into a new place, cover their rent for just that 1 month, you know, look for ways to help them get a gap, maybe a gift card. That's more commonly, a lot of times that's all they need, just a gift card so they can go solve stuff. Run the kids to the store, get them clothes because they left the house with no clothes at all. And we try our best to share with them the love of Jesus Christ. He is he is the great physician. Of course, we serve people of all different faiths, but we always want to tell them about how wonderful he is. And we call ourselves pastors because we want to make it clear there's no question as to who's knocking on your door. But believe me, we've not had any problem with anybody taking our kindness or giving, you know, because of faith or anything like that. It's been a blessing. It's been a blessing, I think.
You guys are doing such amazing work in DC for the families who need it most. If people want to give to boost others, I saw on the website you guys have partnerships throughout the community and with business. So
Yeah.
how would somebody give if they would like to donate towards your actions with Boost Others? What would they do?
Okay, easy. You just go to the Boost Others website, hit donate, give. But I want to explain something to you. It might help you because you should give too. I raise a lot of money, so I don't work for Boost Others, so I don't get paid. But I'm the chief fundraiser. So because I'm really passionate about this, there's a lot of good things we give to, and I give to other things too. But think about this: you care about sick kids, you care about abused kids, but the problem is, and I felt this as a policeman, I never knew how to get involved. And I tried to do Christmas things at Children's Hospital and so on, but they have lots of people doing that. So this is unique. What we're doing is things nobody else can or will do. So for instance, child with liver cancer, mom is homeless, and she couldn't afford the bags, like the bags with the milk and stuff that she needed for her G-tube to go into her stomach, because when she got home from the hospital, she had to have that for 2 weeks. Hospital could give her some, but not enough. So anyway, every month it was $200. She couldn't afford $200. Well, I bet you if I'd have called you, Adrian, I don't even know you, and I called you and said, would you give me the $200? I bet you'd do it. And so that's what that's what I'm fighting for, is to be that clear and clean with what we're doing. And it's those kind of needs we're solving. So that's why I say you can give small and make major impact to one family. And you know, with each gift, we average about $200 to $400 per gift. That's our goal. So helps a family, and somebody can give and really make a difference with a small amount of money.
What makes it so unique? How are you able to do things that nobody else can do?
Think of this: if you're a hospital social worker in a sick kid unit, who are they going to? You're going to have everybody's story, but people like my family don't need that help. But there is families, there are single moms, there are others, they need that help. That's where the social workers go. And what we say to the social workers is, look, you have lots of people to call them. But only when you have ones that you can't get solved, call us. We'll do that. Really, look, I loved being a policeman. But the idea that I could take a crisis, take the call, and have good guys kind of like, arrive with good. It's just, to me, a beautiful thought. They're asking us to come. They're not fighting us. They're begging us to come. So we get to come, help them physically and spiritually at the same time. We get only vetted needs. I think that that's one of the hardest things for people to grasp, because there's so many good things and so many good charities doing good work, and they should be supported. But this is just a little bit different in that way.
So for America's youth and for the youth of DC, what is your goal or what is your prayer with Boost Others and with everything that you're doing in your community?
Boy, I tell you, one of the most, we talk about unreached people in the world, people that are so far from, resources and faith and all. And I would just tell you, after riding around the streets of Washington, buying drugs, being robbed by juveniles, I've hung in those neighborhoods so much over my lifetime. I'm just telling you, it's heartbreaking. There is really, really a need for hope. There's really a need for hope. You just would be amazed talking to the kids. Their reason for this violence. I'm not excusing it at all, because let's remember, most juveniles living in that circumstance do not behave that way. That's really critical to remember, because sometimes suburban people think that whole housing project is on fire and everybody in it's a criminal. Well, that's utterly ridiculous. That would be, nobody could survive. The system wouldn't work. It'd be a good movie, but it's not reality. But there is a portion, and those kids, boy, they need hope. And of course, I believe they need more exposure to what Christ can bring them to get them out of there.
Did you say that the criminal youth, the percentage of youth who have engaged in criminal activity, whether it's joining a gang or selling drugs,
Yeah.
they are some of the most unreached,
I think
untouched?
so. Yes, go talk. I'm telling you, you talk to them, you will not believe it. How different they can live right here where you and I live, same TV, same everything. Their orientation is completely different because of abuse, because of what they've lived through. You hear the stories, you're like, you lived in America, you lived, 5.4 miles from me or from the White House or whatever, and you had that experience and I had my experience. You know what I mean? It's legitimate. I'm telling you, it's legitimate. And that's why Jesus loves them so much. And he says, come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, I'll give you rest. I am gentle and lowly. So yeah, that's the love of Christ, what they need more than anything else.
So give us some wisdom. Give me something that you'd want every person who believes in Christ to hear. And give me something you'd want the world to hear.
Okay. So let's say two things. One, for those that have trusted Christ, I would say that rather than be angry about everything in our society, get on your knees and pray for those that are against those kids, making their lives harder. We need to seek the Lord for that, and we need to love them so much. That's what Christ requires us to do. So much of the world is polarized, and Christianity is even polarized, where they're throwing stuff at their TV all night. That isn't what Christians are to do. What Christians are to do is to go solve it, go pray for them, go talk to people, and bring them the great message that they have. It's like if I have all this money and I wouldn't share it with my own kids. What kind of person wouldn't do that? So in the same way, if we have Christ, we gotta share. Okay, so that's one. For those in the world, what they need to know is, hey, this isn't going on this way forever. The Bible has made it quite clear, and everybody in their heart knows it, that this isn't just going forever. There is a day when everybody, all of us, point unto man once time and then judgment. So that's one for each of us individually, but also when you look at the world, you're like, well, this can't continue, and it won't. There is a day of both reckoning and hope. And so for the whole world, they need to repent and look to Jesus as their hope. That's really the answer to crime and to pain and abuse and trauma and all those other things. And that's what God offers. Not to be simplistic, because it's not simple at all. But Christ is the one that'll start you on that journey to really make you different, and help you out.
Thank you so much, Pastor
Yes,
Dale,
thank you.
Pastor Dale Sutherland. Boost others. You can go online, say the website one more time.
Boostothers.org.